In the series of great philosophers, books by great philosophers, we have Descartes, and we have this book called a Discourse on Method. It's a 61-page book with 5 parts. Each part is 10 pages. So, in accordance with our policy that we should not come between a great book which has made our world and you, we are only going to read out in a way which is clear cut, as to what the content is. We have to know what the content is about anybody before automatically, after we know what the content is, we can know whatever lessons or evaluations we can do after we know the content, not because some. And I always say jokingly, why read about a book? Why not read the book? It's the same thing. In fact, it's less confusing because great writers write very beautifully. And for me, that is the interest. For me, it's finally literature. It's a literary activity. Even non-fiction books are literature for me. This is where I differ from a lot of people. They think only fiction is literature. The fiction or art is some. Everything is art. Everything is art. Even a smile is art. Let's start. Discourse on method, part one. Good sense, part one. Good sense is of all things among men. Good sense is of all things among men. We are talking about good sense only. The most equally distributed, he's saying. The most equally distributed. Good sense. For everyone thinks himself, for everyone thinks himself so abundantly provided with it, good sense, that those even who are the most difficult to satisfy in everything else do not usually desire a larger measure of this quality than they already possess. They don't desire a larger measure of this quality, good sense, than they already possess. Should we take it as satire? Anyway, we go on. And in this, it is not likely that all are mistaken. It is not likely that all are mistaken. The conviction is rather to be held as testifying that the power of judging a right and of distinguish truth from error, which is properly what is called good sense or reason, is by nature equal in all men. And that the diversity of our opinions, a very important point. For me, it's such a fresh point. Already, all this is enough. For me, Descartes is enough. He has at least raised a question, a good question, very well. And that the diversity of our opinions, consequently, does not arise from some being endowed with a larger share of reason than others, but solely from this that we conduct our thoughts along different ways and do not fix our attention on the same objects. For to be possessed of a vigorous mind is not enough. The prime requisite is rightly to apply it. The greatest minds, as they are capable of the highest excellences, are open likewise to the greatest aberrations. And those who travel very slowly may yet make far greater progress, provided they keep always to the straight road, than those who, while they run, forsake it. Forsake it. The mistakes, the aberrations. For myself, I have never fancied my mind to be in any respect more perfect than those of the generality. Even I believe that is very true. And by the way, when we reach the end, we'll know what fully the context of what he's saying. That is study methods. Edwin Locke, in a very beautiful book called Guide to Effective Study, calls it the abstract integrative reading. You read abstractly, chapter by chapter, and finally it gets integrated. Abstract integrative reading, and he calls it the highest level of reading. That's the whole point of this whole our whole endeavor in education. For myself, I have never fancied my mind to be in any respect more perfect than those of the generality. On the contrary, I have often wished that I were equal, beautiful humility here, to some others in promptitude of thought, or in clearness and distinctness of imagination, or in fullness and readiness of in memory. Wow. It's very beautiful words. And besides these, I know of no other qualities that contribute to the perfection of the mind. For as to the reason or sense, inasmuch as it is that alone which constitutes us men and distinguish us from the brutes, I am disposed to believe that it is to be found complete in each individual, and on this point, to adopt the common opinion of philosophers who say that the difference of greater and less holds only among the accidents and not among the forms of natures of individuals of the same species. He's making his point, but he's making his point very beautifully. And that's how you read philosophers. What else can we do? Uh, I will not hesitate, however, to avow my belief that it has been my singular good fortune to have very early in life fallen in with certain tracks which have conducted me to considerations and maxims, as I think of gradually augmenting my knowledge and of raising it by little and little to the highest point, which the mediocrity of my talents and the brief duration of my life will permit me to reach. Very beautiful. So I can identify with this in my even smaller way, very small way. For I have already reaped from it such fruits that although I have been accustomed to think lowly enough of myself, and although when I look with the eye of a philosopher at the varied courses and pursuits of mankind at large, I find scarcely one which does not appear in vain and useless. I nevertheless derive the highest satisfaction from the progress I conceive myself to have already made in the search after truth, and cannot help entertaining such expectations of the future as to believe that if among the occupations of men as men there is any one really excellent and important, it is that which I have chosen. This is supreme confidence, very realistic confidence on himself, a full context. Anyway, I'm trying to come between you and the author. It's a temptation. I should stop. This is Descartes, his own words, line by line. Now, after reading this whole book, one book I believe is fairly enough to get a flavor, the essence of a person, the whole person. Then you decide what you want to say, whether you want to say it is absolutely your journey. I'm saying that middlemanery we should not do is my policy, my stand, my very strong stand. Because there is no point in reading about Marx. You have to read Marx. There's no point reading about Bible. You have to read the Bible. Or if you don't want to read Bible, then don't talk about it. That is my stand. I sound very strong in it because as an educator, I don't want young people to be misguided as to think that they don't have to read. That's my worry. Thank you.